welcome back to the Warp Show. On today's episode, we talked to two Canaanite giants from the Promised Land. I didn't so much as talk to them as they just chit-chat away with themselves, a little chatty, but we're gonna talk to someone who can have a two-way conversation, Miss Jaelin. Yay!
What's up? I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. So you've been keeping up with the show.
Yes, absolutely.
You are going to go to the past. Are you ready?
Yes, where am I going?
You're gonna be the 13th Israelite spy.
No way. Oh, I wish I brought my spy gear.
You don't need any of that. You'll be fine.
Oh, let's do this.
5 seconds in a portal could be 5 hours, or 5 days, or 5 weeks, or 5 years. So let's count down from 5 and bring Miss Jaelin back, all right? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Whoa, that was a truly eye-opening experience.
Tell us about it.
Well, let me ask the boys and girls a question. Have you ever broken a promise? Maybe you said you were going to wash the dishes, but your friend asked you to come over and you totally forgot all about the dishes. Or maybe you said you were gonna clean your room before dinner, but you just got a new video game and that would be much more fun. Raise your hand if you've ever been in a similar situation. I know I have. It's easy to break our promises when something better comes along because we don't know what the future holds. But God knows exactly what the future holds. He holds it himself. That's why his promises always remain true. Now, sometimes it can be hard to trust God's promises when we can't see what he sees. The Israelites struggled with this too. They knew what God had promised them. It's literally called the Promised Land, but they still didn't trust God. Because of this, they have been wandering through the desert. A trip that should have only taken a few weeks took 40 years.
40 years? How did they get there?
Well, I'm glad you asked. In Numbers 13, we see the Lord telling Moses to send men to explore the land of Canaan, aka the Promised Land. Moses sent out 12 men, one from each tribe of Israel, and sent them out as spies to explore the land. The spies were to check out the land, the people, how their living is, what their towns look like, and even their soil. Moses also told them to bring back samples of their crops. So the men were sent on their way, ready to explore the land and all that was in store. In verse 23, it says, "When they came to the valley of Eshcol, they cut down a branch with a single cluster of grapes, so large that it took 2 of them to carry it on a pole between them." Those grapes were huge. I'm not talking about the small ones you see in the grocery store. No, I'm talking as big as my head.
I could take a big bite out of one of those grapes right about now.
They were amazing. Now, after 40 days of scouting, the spies returned to the Israelite camp. Numbers 13, 27 and 28 says, "This was their report to Moses. We entered the land you sent us to explore, and it is indeed a bountiful country, a land flowing with milk and honey. Here is the kind of fruit it produces. But the people living there are powerful, and their towns are large and fortified. We even saw giants there, the descendants of Anak." The spies were terrified. Everyone give me your best scared face. Good. But 2 of the spies, Joshua and Caleb, did not agree with the others' fears, remembering the promise from God. Now give me the most courageous look you've got, like a superhero. Perfect, I like it. Now, Caleb tried to calm the crowd, telling them that they could conquer the land. But the spies who explored the land with him disagreed, continuing to spread the bad report among all the Israelites. After that, the Israelites were in panic. They even began wishing to go back to Egypt, the land God just saved them from.
You've got to be kidding me.
No, I'm not. Joshua and Caleb tried to tell the Israelites of how beautiful and wonderful the land was, telling them that God would safely bring them into it and give it to them. They also told them to not rebel against the Lord or to fear the people of the Promised Land, for the Lord is with them. But the Israelites chose to rebel against the Lord.
No!
Yes. They began talking about replacing Moses and Aaron as the leaders and making plans to hurt Joshua and Caleb. Even after all God had done for them, the Israelites still had not learned to trust him. Then the Lord appeared to Moses, not at all happy about what was going on. The Lord said to Moses in Numbers 14, verse 24, Because your men explored the land for 40 days, you must wander in the wilderness for 40 years, a year for each day, suffering the consequences of your sins. The Israelites' disobedience and doubt caused them to wander in the desert for 40 years. Their complaining also caused the old generation, anyone 20 years or older, to not enter into the promised land. The only exceptions would be Joshua and Caleb because of their constant trust in God's promise. Well, after 40 years of wandering in the wilderness, it was time to give their legs a break and enter into the promised land. In Deuteronomy 31, verses 7 and 8, Moses handed his leadership over to Joshua, saying, "Be strong and courageous, for you will lead these people into the land that the Lord swore to their ancestors he would give them. You are the one who will divide it among them as their grants of land. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord will personally go ahead of you. He will be with you. He will neither fail you nor abandon you." If God makes a promise, we can trust that he will come through. No matter what we think, we can trust that he will make it happen. We don't have to worry. Think about God's promise to Abraham when he said that he would be the father of many nations. Then he asked him to sacrifice his only son, Isaac. But he provided a ram instead, keeping his promise.
And what about Joseph?
You're right. God promised that he would rule, and he did. God sees the future. He's timeless. He's already there. His promises have already been kept. If God says it, it will come to pass. When Israel fails, God is always hinting to someone greater, aka Jesus, the one who came to save all of us. Jesus is God's greatest promise to us. God keeps his promises. We just need to keep trusting in him.
Thanks so much for sharing and for daring to go back in time. It is so cool to see how God is a promise keeper. Now, boys and girls, we are wrapping things up, but Miss Jaelin, would you do the big idea with me?
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right, boys and girls, stand to your feet. Stand up, stand up, stand up. We're gonna start the big idea in 3, 2, 1. Trust God all the time. All right, guys, I'll see you next time. Bye.